It was supposed to be a normal visit to the beach. Instead, it turned into one of the most infamous and notorious unsolved disappearances in the history of Australia. Hello everyone, my name is Anya, and in this video we're going to take a look into what happened on this day in the year 1966, the disappearance of the Beaumont children. On the 26th of January 1966, the three Beaumont children, 9-year-old Jane, 7-year-old Arna and 4-year-old Grant, made the trip to Glenelg Beach in Adelaide, Australia. They had received permission from their mother Nancy to go for a morning swim and then to return home on the 12 o'clock bus. Life in the 1960s was very different to life nowadays. It was a time where the environment was relaxed and safe, and it was a time where everybody trusted everyone around them. At 8:45 a.m, Nancy Beaumont waved goodbye to her children who boarded the bus to make the 5-minute journey to Glenelg Beach. This was the last time that Nancy Beaumont ever saw her children. When she returned to greet the 12 o'clock bus, none of her children were on board. Initially believing that they were running late, she waited around for the next bus that arrived at 2 p.m, but again, there was no sign of the children. Nancy's husband Jim arrived home after a business trip, and he made the trip to Glenelg Beach to search for the children. After searching the beach and various houses, at around 5:30 p.m, the parents went to the police station to report the children missing. Within the next 24 hours, the entire nation knew about the disappearance of the Beaumont children. Airports, shuttle buses and railway stations were put on high alert for any sign of the three children. Investigators and volunteers scoured Glenelg Beach for any sign of Jane, Arna and Grant. But despite multiple searches and even the draining of a nearby boat ranch, no trace of the Beaumont children was ever found. Several eyewitnesses who had seen the children on the beach came forward, stating that they had seen the children in the company of a man believed to be in his 30s, wearing swim trunks, quite athletic in stature, and had short, light brown blonde hair. The children were reported to be very relaxed in this man's company. The parents, Jim and Nancy Beaumont, later stated that the children were very shy, and it was quite a surprise to see them quite relaxed with this man's company. They theorized that the children had met this man on a previous trip to the beach. This was supported by a comment made by 7-year-old Arna in the days prior to their disappearance. Arna had stated to her mother that her sister Jane had, quote, gotten a boyfriend down at the beach. Nancy Beaumont at the time had dismissed this as a playmate and didn't think anything else of it until after the disappearance. An employee at a nearby Wenzel's bakery also came forward, stating that around 12:20 p.m. on the 26th of January, 9-year-old Jane had arrived at the bakery and had purchased pasties and a meat pie with a £1 note. This further supported the theory that the children had been with someone for two reasons. First, the children had never purchased meat pies in the past as they didn't like the taste. Second, their mother had only given them 6 shillings and 6 pence, enough to pay for lunch and the bus fare home. So, where exactly did that £1 note come from? Despite multiple searches, multiple interviews, and even a reward for any information, no trace of Jane, Arna and Grant Beaumont was ever found. In the decades following the children's disappearance, multiple suspects have been investigated. One suspect was Derek Ernest Percy, who at the time was Victoria's longest serving inmate and a convicted child murderer. Percy would even admit that he had been at Glenelg Beach on the day of the disappearance on a family trip. However, he denied any involvement in the children's disappearance. Percy's involvement was also put into question by the fact that he was 17 at the time of the disappearance, making him significantly younger than the suspect, who appeared to be in his mid-30s. Another suspect was convicted murderer Bevan Spencer von Einem, who was convicted of the 1983 murder of 15-year-old Richard Dallas Kelvin. However, despite von Einem admitting to have been the murderer, his involvement was also put into question. He had the mindset of a person who could put himself at the center of attention of anything. He would admit to anything to get attention from the public and investigators. There's no solid evidence putting him as the main suspect in the Beaumont children's disappearance. The most notable suspect was a man named Harry Phipps, who died in 2004. He bore a striking resemblance to the suspect. He was a factory worker who lived close to the beach, and he was known for giving out £1 notes. His own son, Hayden Phipps, who was 15 at the time of the disappearance, went go on to claim that he had seen the children in the backyard on the day of their disappearance. However, despite multiple searches of various properties owned by Phipps, no trace of the Beaumont children was ever found. 60 years have passed since the disappearance of Jane, Arna and Grant Beaumont. It is one of the most notorious and infamous unsolved disappearances in the history of Australia. Nancy and Jim Beaumont passed away in 2019 and 2023 respectively, without ever knowing what happened to their 3 children. The disappearance of the Beaumont children shattered the innocence of Australia. Parents began to question the true safety of their children and whether was it possible for their children to be safe without any supervision. There is a $1 million reward for any information as to the fate of the Beaumont children. We can only hope that someone, someday, will come forward with the crucial information to know what happened to the 3 Beaumont children. It was supposed to be a normal visit to the beach. Instead, it turned into one of the most infamous and notorious unsolved disappearances in the history of Australia. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. My name is Anya, and we just looked at what happened on this day.